Well, it is wildcard time. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan. I am on a Game Week 6 wildcard right now, and therefore I have built my first draft for a wildcard team. Guys, this is just the first iteration of my Game Week 6 wildcard. There might be some changes between now and deadline, so make sure you subscribe, follow along to see the updates closer to the deadline. But we're going to be having a look at this team, then we are going to be having a look at some alternative players that I am also considering for each position that could potentially come in, that I think are great options for you guys as well. Maybe if you are on a different budget to me, then they might work pretty well for you. And then we're going to be having a look at a transfer strategy and a chip strategy for this very team, guys. So loads to get stuck in with. Let's get going. So this team does indeed cost 99.6 million. So hopefully it is going to be affordable for most people. But again, like I say, we have got some alternative players to maybe switch up the budget just a little bit. So let's get cracking, guys. Let's start off in goal and we're going to go for Raya. And there's no question marks for me. I want Raya in as my long-term goalkeeper. Arsenal, once again, just seem to be the best defense in the Premier League, hardly conceding any chances. Raya making a couple of saves here and there. And I think at 5.5 million, he is just the best way to get a nailed Arsenal defender in your team. So a really straightforward decision here. There is no other goalkeepers I am considering for my wildcard team. And with Arsenal, with some great fixtures coming up after Newcastle in Game Week 6, we have West Ham in 7, Fulham in 8, Crystal Palace in 9, and Burnley in 10. Even in Game Week 11, we've got Sunderland there as well. And I would say all of those teams are pretty weak attacks. You know, Fulham and Crystal Palace, they might be quite strong defensively, but actually these two teams are really nice to target with defenders because they don't score too many goals. And I think Arsenal can definitely keep a decent amount of clean sheets in these upcoming games. Very straightforward decision, as I say. So much so that we are going to be doubling up in the Arsenal defense. We're going to go for Gabriel for the same reasons, really, as I just mentioned with Raya. One maybe additional point with Gabriel. I know he's not great for defensive contributions, but so far this season, he has been the best Arsenal defender for defensive contributions. He has hit that threshold once already this season. So that is something to be aware of. But also, I really like Gabriel for his attacking threat from those set pieces, particularly against West Ham in Game Week 7. So West Ham at home, West Ham have been super vulnerable from goals from corners. And Gabriel, of course, is a bit of a specialist in that regard. So I think he could get a really nice score in that game week in particular. But again, we mentioned this is a really nice run of fixtures for the best defense in the Premier League. It does make sense to double up on the Arsenal defense, even against Newcastle. I think this is an okay fixture. Arsenal can keep a clean sheet against pretty much anyone, as we see time and time again. So I'm not even that concerned about the Newcastle game, to be honest. And I think actually the Newcastle away fixture is maybe better for defensive contributions for Gabriel than maybe some of the other fixtures. For our other defenders, we are going to be more kind of focused on defensive contributions. So Romero, first of all, he is the best defender for the likes of Spurs for defensive contributions. And we know that Spurs still have a few decent fixtures to come. Wolves and Leeds and the next two, for example, really nice there. So not only are you going to get some hopefully clean sheets there, because Spurs have generally been pretty good for clean sheets. A little bit of an overperformance, but pretty good generally. Romero was also probably the biggest attacking threat for Spurs in terms of those defenders. Pedro Porro not really offering too much. Van de Ven has maybe got a bit fortunate. He's not typically a goal-scoring defender, whereas Romero has a much stronger history of getting attacking returns. So for that reason, I do like Romero, spending that extra bit of money, upgrading the Van de Ven to a Romero and going for that instead. And our final defender is another super nailed-on player in my wildcard draft. He is absolutely going nowhere, and that is going to be Senesi. Senesi obviously is increasing in price a little bit, up to 4.7 million now. His next fixtures are all, once again, just like Arsenal, really strong for defenders. So we got Leeds, Fulham and Crystal Palace, who, again, strong maybe defensively, these teams, but not so strong in attack. And then we got Nottingham Forest at home in Game Week 9 as well. So really nice run here for Bournemouth. And actually from Game Week 12 onwards, the fixtures look really good for Bournemouth as well. Although there is a little blip in Game Week 10 and 11 where Bournemouth play Man City and Aston Villa, which maybe you could substitute Senesi in those games, maybe have that bench cover for those particular game weeks. That's probably something I am looking to do for those 2 game weeks. But of course, Senesi is the guy for defensive contributions, like the #1 guy for defensive contributions. And no player has more C-bits per start in the entire Premier League for defenders so far this season. So he is the #1 player for that. And also going back a couple of years, he was really good for both goals and assists a couple of years ago when he was nailed for Bournemouth before his injury problems, before he kind of found himself out of favour, maybe last season. Before that, he was doing really, really well. And Bournemouth just look like a strong team generally right now. So it makes a lot of sense. I think Senesi has got to be in any wildcard team that you build. Let's move on into the bench before we go into the midfield, because I want to take a look at some of these bench defenders here as well as the bench goalkeeper. So we have Dubravka as the bench goalkeeper. You're not going to play him pretty much ever. Useful for a bench boost, and this team is targeting a bench boost in game week 8. We'll cover that shortly, but you can see Leeds at home in game week 8 for Burnley is a pretty nice fixture there. But we're looking at these other 2 defenders really here, and that is Richards and Rodon we have currently. Richards I really like, another defensive contributions monster. I know Mark Gay has been getting the attacking returns, but I think that is kind of incidental. Don't think there's really too much difference between the attacking threat of Richards, Lacroix and Gay. When we see the chances that they get game on game, they seem to be fairly evenly distributed between those 3 players. So therefore, I think going for the cheapest guy at 4.5 million makes a lot of sense, but it also makes sense because Richards is the best guy for defensive contributions among those Crystal Palace defenders so far. So he's doing really, really well in that regard so far. Already picking up defensive contributions a couple of times now. Obviously, we saw him hit it in game week 5 against West Ham, in game week 3 against Aston Villa as well. And he came close in game week 1 and 2 as well. So there's lots of positive signs there that I think Richards could be the Crystal Palace defender to go for now. No need to spend too much money on this position. If you really do want to go for Lacroix or Gay, then, you know, that's fair enough, but not really something I'm considering, but maybe I'm a bit of a Richards fanboy. And at this point, I would like to take a look at the alternative players. So these are the other kind of defenders that I am considering to go for in my team for the wild card, and I've split them up really into the premium, mid and cheap categories, and any one of these players I can definitely see potentially in my final game week 6 wildcard team. Some are stronger than others. Let's go through them. So in the premium category, I like Virgil. The fixtures aren't amazing for him, maybe compared to Gabriel, but I definitely understand why someone might want to go for Virgil. He is much better than Gabriel for defensive contributions, maybe has a similar attacking threat. Probably Gabriel a bit more, but, you know, you're still going to have some attacking threat from the set pieces from Virgil as well. And obviously, he is going to be nailed on for a very strong Liverpool team that do seem to be improving defensively, it has to be said. I've got Tarkowski in here. Love his next 2 fixtures, but the fixtures for Everton do take a bit of a nosedive after that. So, therefore, Tarkowski, is he going to be a good long-term pick? I'm not as convinced. I think with your premium defender, you're maybe looking for something a little bit more long-term. And even though Tarkowski has been really, really good for defensive contributions, as we knew he would be, I don't think Everton are perfect defensively, so maybe that is a worry. And beyond game week 8, there's maybe one good fixture. I think they play Sunderland in maybe game week 10 or 11, something like that. But outside of that, West Ham, Crystal Palace, and that Sunderland fixture, the fixtures are pretty poor generally for Everton and for a Everton defender that is probably not going to keep too many clean sheets regardless. He's just a pure C-bit target, a pure DEFCON defensive contributions man. And is it worth spending 5.5 million on that? I'm on the fence on that one, but I still do like him. Gavardio is the other option here as well, of course. A little bit riskier for minutes, perhaps, but Man City have some good fixtures for quite some time now, so you could go there. In terms of those mid-priced defenders that I like the look of, Chalobah continues his attacking form. He seems to be the target man for those Chelsea set pieces, and there's still plenty of good fixtures to come for Chelsea outside of game week 7 at least. Tosin is here at 4.5 as well, although he didn't start in game week 5, which has worried me a little bit, and that's dropped him down into 3rd. Anderson's also really popular. He doesn't have the fixtures in his favour. However, he has been amazing for defensive contributions as well. Another defensive contribution absolute monster. My concern with Anderson at 4.5 million is One, he doesn't really work for a bench boost in game week 8 because he faces Arsenal, pretty tough fixture there. And just generally, I struggle really to find game weeks where I would play Anderson over my other defenders. So Anderson, he is good, but is he better than the other defenders I already have? Would he just rot on my bench? And would he even be useful for a bench boost? And that's why he's not in my current lineup, but I definitely see the appeal with the defensive contributions. If you're looking for another cheap defender, instead of Rodon better for defensive contributions, but Goodmanson maybe a little more attacking threat, a little more bonus threat. But I like some Sunderland defenders here as well. Alderete seems to be the best Sunderland defender to go for right now. He is the best guy for defensive contributions, I think, probably going forward, playing in that left centre-back role for a Sunderland team that actually look pretty decent so far. Mukiele is also a consideration. He's playing at right centre-back right now, but when Dan Ballard comes back to the Sunderland lineup, I can see Mukiele maybe moving to the right-back position and getting slightly less defensive contributions. So that's why I'm not as keen on Mukiele. He has been great for defensive contributions so far, but again, when he moves to right back, if he moves to right back, I have some concerns about that one. So that is why they are kind of listed that way. So like all of these defenders on the alternative list, and also, of course, like the defenders on my actual team sheet as well, perhaps a little bit more right now. But still time to change. Plenty of time before the next deadline. Let's move on into the midfield then, guys. We have got Bruno Fernandes, first of all. We'll start off with the expensive guy. And with Palmer, with some groin injury issues right now, there are concerns around whether he is going to be ready for game week 6 or not. And if he's not, I think the best alternative is probably going to be Bruno Fernandes as a short-term punt, making sure you do save a couple of transfers to make a switch from Bruno to Palmer later if Palmer is available. If Palmer doesn't look like he is going to be super hot for minutes, you also have the possibility to move to Saka when he's back. So I think Bruno, I think we all agree, not at 9 million, he's probably not good value for money, but he represents a really nice cash cow player that you can hold into your team until you decide who you really do want to go for maybe perhaps the slightly longer term. But in the next 2 game weeks, it's great. Brentford away. Obviously, Brentford are struggling right now. We've got Sunderland at home in game week 7 as well. So nice couple of fixtures to tide you over until you do lock in another decision. But, you know, there are definitely alternatives here. Bruno is not the only way forward. He is just a nice cash cow player to maybe hold on to. So I know people, you know, every time you mention Bruno Fernandes in an FPL video, you will get angry comments about it. If you are not a fan of Bruno, you don't have to go for him. He is in my current draft. That does not mean he's going to be in my final draft. And I will, of course, show you the midfield alternatives as well that I am also considering. But we'll go to the second midfielder before we do that, Semenyo. And super obvious pick. I don't think anyone is going to be leaving Semenyo out of their wildcard teams for game week 6. Leeds away is a nice fixture for him indeed. The fixtures after that, maybe a little bit mixed, but certainly there's going to be potential for Semenyo when he is playing so well, putting up such great underlying numbers. And if Cliver is not on the pitch, Semenyo is the penalty taker, and he could even continue as the penalty taker even if Cliver is playing. I obviously cannot confirm that yet. We've not seen it yet, but Semenyo looking really hot right now. Great data. Okay fixtures beyond game week 6. Great fixture in game week 6. He just seems to be the pick of the midfielders right now. I don't think anyone's arguing with that one. So we'll move on to the other midfielders. We have got Kudus of Spurs fame here. There's still some nice fixtures coming up for Spurs. Wolves, Leeds, Aston Villa. I like these fixtures for Spurs quite a lot. And Kudus seems to be that nailed man on the wing for Spurs at the moment. A couple of assists in game week 5. It's definitely a creative man, but also showing a little bit more goal threat as well, which I quite like. The Thomas Frank wingers have always typically done well. Think Mbermo from previous seasons. And I think Kudus is potentially going to become that guy as, you know, we see week on week Spurs continue to seemingly get results, get goals, and him being a big part of that. Wolves at home, by the way, just an amazing fixture, arguably a better fixture than against any of the newly promoted teams right now. So it's definitely a target fixture to have that Spurs player in your team with maybe an eye to transfer him out later, maybe in a double switch. Bruno and Kudus maybe down to, Kudus down to a cheaper midfielder and Bruno up to you know, the likes of Palmer or Saka, depending on what you want to do there. And Jai is going to be my final midfielder here. Great for defensive contributions, very good attacking threat, a penalty taker as well, and still good fixtures coming up for Everton, including West Ham next. After that, a little bit choppier, but I think the difference between, you know, someone like Tarkowski, who is obviously a defender, and an attacker, well, we don't have to worry about the fixtures as much when picking attackers, particularly when Everton seem to be better in attack than they are in defence. So if Grealish keeps creating, I'm sure Njai will continue to knock them in, keeps getting defensive contributions. When a penalty comes, that's going to be great for him as well. Plenty of positives for Ilman and Jai, really like him. And at this point, we can have a look at the alternatives. I guess we can speak about Dewsbury Hall as well. He is on the bench here. West Ham at home again. At 5 million, he just looks like the best 5 million midfielder of the bunch. There are some alternatives we are going to have a look at for the cheap midfield category. But if you want to go super cheap, Dewsbury Hall, set piece taker, a little bit of creativity, taking the odd shot here and there as well. There does seem to be a plenty of positives, and he is clearly underpriced at 5 million. So a good, really, really good value for money there. But let's look at the alternatives in the midfield position, and there are plenty once again. In the premium category, you could simply just go for Palmer this week, particularly if his prognosis is positive, if it looks like he's going to be okay to play. I definitely am open to playing to having Palmer straight away in game week 6. I think that's fine. Foden is also here as well as an alternative if you want to take a bit of a risk and maybe target particularly the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 game weeks. If Foden, you know, continues to be in good form and really explodes, then we know what he's capable of. We know how high his ceiling is. And Brian and Burmo as an alternative to Bruno is quite nice as well. And Burmo's been putting up some really nice underlying data so far. Maybe he hasn't really scored, assisted as much as we would have hoped so far this season, but the data is suggesting, and, you know, watching him as well is suggesting that attacking returns are coming. So a possibility there. In the mid-priced players, we've got really only one player above, you know, like 6.5 million. And the only player I'm really thinking about that isn't already in my team is Xavi Simons. Obviously he didn't start in game week 5, but if he's going to be a regular starter going into the future, and I think he will be, there is definitely potential for him to be even better than Kudus. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for there. We've got Minter and Paqueta here as well. Minter looks really interesting, and I was thinking about him even before he scored against Spurs as a really nice player with good data, seems to be good for minutes right now. Chelsea in game week 6 isn't great, but if you've got someone like Dewsbury Hall on your bench, you can play Dewsbury Hall ahead of Minter for game week 6, or you could even play Minter if you wanted to. The fixtures after that, there are some good ones, so maybe Minter is more of a rotation option, so that is something to consider. And Paqueta is here as well. Generally, his fixtures are not amazing, to be honest, and I think he has dipped a little bit in our thinking. Obviously, he is still a consideration, but I don't think he is going to be as hyped in game week 6 as maybe he was in game week 4 and 5. Maybe that's because the goals have dried off. I don't know. But West Ham not looking amazing right now. But Paqueta does work for a game week 8 bench boost with that home fixture against Brentford, which is quite nice there. In terms of those cheaper, even cheaper midfielders, we've got Reinders. It's always going to be an option. Could be 5.6 million by the time you watch this video. He seems to be dropping in price right now. Caicedo, if you're just looking for defensive contribution points, looking to pick them up each week, you're going to get the very odd goal or assist. I don't think it's going to happen as often as it has done so far this season, but he's secure for minutes. He's going to get defensive contributions most games. He seems like a nice way to access 4, maybe 5 points most game weeks, which is, you know, it's absolutely fine for that cheap price tag. And if you want to go ultra cheap, you don't like Dewsbury Hall, maybe you're looking for a midfielder who is better for game week 8 for a bench boost. And because Dewsbury Hall, there is some concern with a player like him that he does play against Man City away in game week 8, which isn't the perfect fixture. I don't think it's horrible, but it's not the best fixture there really for him either. So therefore, could you go for Stack, who is okay for defensive contributions, got a couple of attacking returns so far. His attacking data isn't amazing, but yeah, he seems to be a really, really top player for this Leeds United team. And, you know, you never know. He could continue. At 5 million, again, I think he is a little bit underpriced, and I think he is good value for money, but we're not expecting him to be the next Mo Salah or anything like that. We'll just put it that way. But hey, you never know. If Mo Salah continues the form he's been in recently and the goals and assists dry up, maybe Stack could actually outperform him. But those are the alternative midfielders. We can move on to the forwards now, guys, before we have a look at some strategy for transfers and chips. And we're going to have Erling Haaland in this team, of course, no doubt about that whatsoever. His fixtures are very, very good for a very long time. He has the best data, the best form of any player in the Premier League. Just a super, super obvious forward to have in your team. I think the Haaland versus Salah debate for now is mostly settled. I think it's okay to have both if you wanted to, but right now, you know, people are going to prefer Haaland. I prefer Haaland. There's no Liverpool players in this team right now, and I don't think I'm too worried about that one. I think that the problem with Liverpool right now is that their attacking returns are so evenly distributed between so many amazing attacking players that Liverpool look like the Premier League champions already. It's great for Liverpool, but it is bad for FPL. It really is. So for now, I think I'm happy to wait on those Liverpool players, see how Isak fits in, see if Wirtz can improve, maybe his position or his place in the system changes. There's still a lot of information to come from Liverpool, so I'm a little hesitant to go for those players. Haaland, on the other hand, the Man City team has never been more focused on getting Erling Haaland chances to score goals, and that is proven by his data, his goal scoring record. Absolutely crazy stuff, and a must-have against Burnley. We've got Joao Pedro in here against Brighton with no Palmer in this team. I do think you do need to have Joao Pedro in your team because he is just, you know, that second best attacking option for Chelsea. Disappointment in game week 5, but maybe unique circumstances. But home against Brighton, nice fixture. At home against Liverpool, don't mind it. But really, it's from game week maybe 8 or 9 onwards that we really like the look of his fixtures. In game week 9, he has Sunderland, Spurs, Wolves, Burnley. It's a really nice little run of fixtures there for the likes of Joao Pedro. So that's why he is going to be very, very high on the priority list for forwards. But we've got Gyökeres in here as well, and I've put him in third because he plays Newcastle away, and I know that is worrying for some people. I think these fixtures are worse for Arsenal attackers than they are defenders, which is why we've got double Arsenal defense right now and only one Arsenal attacker. But if he's the penalty taker, at least for now, maybe even permanently, if he can keep being that poacher, Arsenal creating chances, Gyökeres just needs to knock them in. He doesn't need to be an amazing football player, although I think he is. He just needs to put the ball in the back of the net. And so far, so good in that regard. So particularly, you know, games like West Ham, I think that's going to be really nice. Those games that demand a bit more physicality is going to suit Gyökeres as well. There's plenty to love about him, and that's why he is in this team. I think he's also another, kind of like Bruno, a bit of a cash cow player. If you want to free up money for big moves later on in the season, downgrading Gyökeres to another forward that might emerge. And let's be honest, guys, there isn't too many forwards we love the look of right now. That is hopefully going to become, there's hopefully going to become more options later on in the season as we move on through the game weeks. So this is what the team is looking like right now. We're going to throw the captain's armband on Erling Haaland with the vice captain on Semenyo. This is how the team would mostly set up for game week 6. I do really like the look of this, but this team is so much more than game week 6, and that's why I want to go through the transfer strategy and the chip strategy as well. Before we have a look at this, guys, just a reminder, if you are enjoying the video or finding it useful, dropping a like really, really does help me out so much. So a big shout out to all of you guys who do leave likes and subscribes on the videos. It really is very much appreciated and respected, I suppose. But yes, guys, we are on the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. If you want to check this out for free, get your team rating, you can do so using the link in the description. You can also get a full subscription using that same link, and you will get 50% off your subscription, get access to all of Fantasy Football Hub's amazing tools, plus their team tool that we're going to be having a look at today. So what have we got here, guys? Well, we've got the game week 6 team that we have already had a cheeky little look at already, and we're going to go week by week and have a look at this team. And by the way, guys, 100% team rating, so this is a data backed team. Now, some people don't like data, but I'm sure a lot of people will say, you know, this team makes sense even if you watch football. I think people's issue with data is maybe at the start of the season, we only had last season's data to contend with, but now the data models seem to have caught up with this season's data as well, which is why we're seeing players like Semenyo and Haaland and Joao Pedro, Senesi, you know, Romero, Raya, whoever. We're seeing so many of these players rank and be rated so highly on the data models as well. So yeah, please don't discount data. Fair enough, it may have not worked at the start of the season, but you can see, guys, these are players that you probably like the look of anyway, and this is a 100% rated team. So you have two choices. You can say this is a terrible team, and the data-based approach is wrong, or you can say, okay, yeah, this team is great, and also the data thinks it's great as well. So yeah, maybe the data approach is onto something. I don't know, just some food for thought, guys. But the real focus is the strategy here, and there is a big strategy. Let's go week by week. So game week 6 we've covered. We don't really need to look at that. Game week 7, I don't think there's too much to discuss here either. There is a potential for a bench boost in game week 8. You'll probably have Dubravka against Aston Villa, Richards against Everton, Dewsbury Hall against Palace, and Rodon against Spurs. So maybe a bench boost there, but probably not. Game week 8 is where bench boost looks really, really much nicer. So you've got Dubravka against Leeds, Rodon against Burnley, Senesi against Palace, and Dewsbury Hall against Man City. Of course, if you go for, you know, an alternative player like Stack, you're going to get a slightly better fixture there. So you'll have Burnley away instead. You could even, if you didn't want to double up on Leeds, that you could even, in your game week 6 wildcard, go for Alderete in the defender position, and you'll have him at home against Wolves. So you have a player from each newly promoted team, each at that 4 million price tag, each with great fixtures, without really, you know, going too far in on one team in particular. But all of these work in game week 8. All of the newly promoted teams, all of the 4 million guys have great fixtures in game week 8. So that is something to consider. If you have a bit more money, you can maybe even do Dewsbury Hall to someone a little bit more expensive. You know, we spoke about Reinders already. So he plays against Everton at home in that game week. We had a look at the likes of Caicedo as well, who would play against Nottingham Forest. Not bad. And who else is there? Jaden Anthony is another player I quite like from Burnley. He plays Leeds at home in that week as well. So yeah, there's plenty of other cheap-ish midfielders. But if you're looking for 5 million, Dewsbury Hall, Stack, these are your two guys. And they're both, I think they're both bench boostable in game week 8. I think Dewsbury Hall is fine to bench boost, even against Man City. I don't think it's the worst fixture in the league, to be fair. I think you can score against Man City. I don't think it's impossible. So yes, so that is what game week 8 would look like with a bench boost here. At this point, we're probably thinking about using some transfers. And the transfers I'm probably most likely looking at is getting Palmer in at this point. So if you haven't got Palmer in your game week 6 team, you're going to have to make some kind of switch. Maybe you have Bruno here, maybe you have Foden here, whoever it is. You can take him out, and you can probably take out Kudus. Now, you don't have to do this in game week 8. You could also do it in game week 9, but I think you have to do it in either game week 8 or 9. 9 is the absolute latest, because 9 is where Chelsea play Sunderland at home. So if Palmer is looking good by game week 8, switch him in. You free up a little bit of budget by removing Kudus, and then you can go for another midfielder, depending on what your budget is. Now, it's going to be different for different people. You can go for, let's just, for the sake of cheapness and making sure everyone can afford this, you can ignore the in the bank thing, by the way. This is set up on my team and my budget right now. So yeah, so you can go for Stack here, and maybe that works for you. So let's just assume you've done that, make transfers, and then your bench boost is looking like this. Your team is looking like this. You've got Palmer in here for this. Again, you don't have to do it in game week 8. You can maybe do it in game week 9 instead. I think, yeah, like I say, both work. I think you will keep Njai over Kudus though, if you were going to do this, because I think Njai still has that nice Sunderland fixture in a couple of weeks after. In game week, 10? And I think the fixtures for Spurs do get a little choppier from here. So 10 against Chelsea, 11 against Man United, 12 against Arsenal. So I think at this point, you're probably okay to start removing some Spurs players if you want to. But yeah, again, plenty of alternatives. I'm just giving you a rough guideline on how a transfer strategy might work, because as we all know, things change very quickly in FPL, and our minds change on many different things. So just an example, of course. So that pretty much gets you through the next few game weeks. You can alternate stack and Dewsbury Hall in this particular example. You're always going to have really strong defenders, so you can play Senesi this week, and then in game week 10, when Senesi has his bad fixture against Man City, you can play Richards here instead. Works really well. And then going through game week 11, again, you're probably not going to need to do too much. Maybe like just little transfers to fix any injury problems and stuff like that, but no urgency really to make any transfers other than, you know, ones that you just like the look of at any given moment. But game week 13 is probably when we have another swing here. And this is where Arsenal's fixtures get a little bit worse and Liverpool's fixtures become amazing. So at this point, I'd be looking to do like a Gabriel to a Virgil. Something like that to capitalize on the great fixtures that Liverpool do have from that point onwards. I also would probably want to have a Salah in my team by this point. So something like Palmer and Gyökeres to a Salah, and that's not quite affordable. Maybe we might need to downgrade someone else as well. Not really sure how we're going to do this. So I was kind of eyeing up for a forward. Well, I mean, you could just go for a cheap forward, technically, if you wanted to. We are getting a little light here, so I think someone like Joao Pedro might need to go by this point as well. And then we're kind of looking at some cheaper forwards, maybe Mateta, what is he, 7.6? Something like that. So there's some other players that you could potentially go for. Maybe you do need to downgrade some other players. Romero might need to go. So, yeah, at this point, getting a Salah is tough. I think getting an Isak might be easier. Or, you know, maybe it's Ekatike, maybe it's Gakpo, maybe it's Wirtz. Salah is a little tough. And I think game week 13 is probably your first hurdle with this team, because you basically need to switch Arsenal players for Liverpool players. And that is not super easy to do. And that's why so many people will be saving their wild card until game week 13. And I want to make you guys aware of this, because obviously you can see we need quite a lot of surgery to kind of bring players like Salah in, if you did want to bring in Salah, because that is, of course, going to be optional. But even if you're not, it's going to be Isak, it's going to be Wirtz, it's going to be Gakpo, it's going to be someone. You're going to need some surgery. And that's why it's going to be so important, if you are wildcarding in game week 6, to try and save as many transfers as possible. Now, fortunately for me, I've already rolled a few transfers before my wildcard. They will carry over to after my wildcard. So in game week 7, I'm going to have 3 free transfers already. So I'm going to be able to make the switch to Palmer. I'm going to be able to hopefully save a few more transfers up until game week 13. Should have around, what is it? Something like, so 3 by game week 7. So it's going to be like 8-9 transfers maybe by game week 12, 13, 14, when I do want to bring in my Liverpool players. Obviously, we'll use some of them on injured players, or suddenly in good form or in bad form players, depending on what moves I want to make there. But we need to save at least some for making big Arsenal to Liverpool kind of moves. So yeah, something to be aware of at the end of this strategy. But yes, I've spoken a lot in today's video. I know a lot of people just want to see just a wild card to copy and paste, but I think it's important to go through the strategy so you guys can see exactly where this team goes, how it works, why it is good, how it will move into the future, where the chip strategy is. We haven't spoken about the triple captain. There are some opportunities. Game week 13 at home against Leeds for Haaland is nice. Game week 15 at home against Sunderland is quite nice for Haaland as well, potentially there. You've got Salah in game week 14 against Sunderland at home. There are plenty of options still for triple captain, but I don't really want to, you know, think about that too much, because I think with a triple captain, you can kind of vibes it a little bit. If everything looks good in an individual moment, you know, you've got a player who's in good form playing against a team who is bang out of form, just hit that triple captain, guys. There's not really going to be double game weeks in the first half of the season, unlikely to be any. And you've got to use one of your triple captains before the first half of the season ends. So I think you can vibes it to a large degree. And as for the free hit, yeah, I haven't really thought about that one yet. That's one to consider in the future. We haven't got that far. It's going to be quite distantly in the future, I think, but we'll have to wait and see for that one. Like I said, guys, do drop a like if you enjoyed or found this video useful. Do subscribe if you want to follow along with all of my changes to the wildcard team throughout the week. Hopefully it's going to be a good one. Thanks so much for watching. Will be plenty more game week 6 videos throughout the week, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.